All right, and with that we should be live. So today we are going to talk about windshields, and full transparency, I was a little bit nervous about this as a topic. This is one of those requests that when you get the phone call, you're a little bit like, am I going to be able to help this person? Yes or no? I don't want to give the guy bad news.
A lot of time conversation goes bad, right?
Yeah.
Not our goal. We want
Yeah,
to
and
make
of
sure
course,
we
we want everyone to
anybody.
live happy. But, you know, it was a unique scenario. So why don't you talk about what we have here and kind of your boat, Jared?
Yeah, so, you know, I'd actually purchased an older Cobia Sunskiff from 1985 from my wife's uncle and have rebuilt everything on the boat. New stringers, new floors, new hatches. Everything's been completely redone. Really happy with the boat. Last thing that I haven't done, of course, is the windscreen. So, you know, the difficult thing about the windscreen, and you know, when I first started here, I was really excied to be a part of Teak Isle.
It was in the interview. You're like, I need a windscreen. I'm like, of all the things.
Yeah. So you know, lo and behold, Andrew kind of cringed when I said that, which now kind of finding out, and that's why we want to talk about it today. A couple of difficulties that are there, but you know, this is my older windscreen here. You know, for on the boat since 1985, and you know, we've remade another one. We want to kind of talk about some of the processes.
What are we looking at? What do you think is wrong with? I mean, obviously it doesn't look good, right? So that is crazing, of course, right? Yep. It's crazing of acrylic, and what are the main things that cause crazing of acrylics? One of them is using ammonia cleaners. This is one of the very common things is Windex. You know, Windex has ammonia, and there's a lot of other cleaners that are really good for glass, but for acrylics they cause crazing. And that's almost definitely what you would have. I know there were previous owners before there, but do you know what you cleaned it down with? Or was it like this when you bought it?
This is exactly how it was when I bought it. I would imagine, you know, similar to me, without working here and having a conversation with you, I would have always thought that, you know, what do you clean glass with? Ammonia, right?
Sure.
So you know,
Windex,
you wash it down, everything's done, you get Windex, you start to spray down your windscreen. That is the exact opposite of what you want to do with acrylic. You know, again, this was this way, but if it wasn't, I would have made it this way over time. So actually, one of our sales managers, Matt, he talks to us about, you know, when he washes down his boat, he just uses water because he works here. He knows that. So I think that's a really good point for the audience, that as you're cleaning your boat, don't use ammonia, or else you'll end up with a windscreen like this.
So I want to talk about what the what options someone has when you know, they have a windshield that needs to be replaced, and this is going to be a little bit unique. You know, we want these to be very helpful and collaborative. You know, but there's always the undertones of, yeah, we're trying to sell you something. You know, and this is going to be a little bit unique in that we're going to be very honest. Not that we're not always honest, but you know, maybe brutally so. And in some case, it might make sense to go to who is even a competitor, you know, or a, you know, an individual who does, you know, local fabrication, who can come out to your boat to take, you know, measurements and kind of walk you through. This is exactly what I would do if I was giving my buddy advice about, hey, my windshield's broken. So, you know, one of the first things is, you know, identifying, you know, what kind of material it is. Is it glass or is it acrylic? And really, those are the main primary materials that windshields are fabricated of. In this case, it's acrylic, of course.
Right.
But it's very common to have, you know, glass windscreens. And generally, when you have a glass windscreen, it's framed and captured in some kind of a metal frameworks. And we're going to talk a lot less about glass windscreens today than we are acrylic. The big reason being, well, we don't do glass work, and we are not really experts in giving advice on that.
Sure.
Conveniently, though, there is a, you know, major manufacturer, you know, Tailormade products that does the vast majority of you know, sales to the OEMs. And let's actually switch over, and I'll show you. Let's go to Tailormade. Let's switch over to the screen. And what I have here is I actually have Tailormade's catalog, and I'll scroll up to the top. So Tailormade makes most of the OEM windshields for a lot of the boat builders, and you know, my understanding is their customer service department's pretty responsive and able to kind of help you find what you need. And they've got a variety of different standard styles here. You can see the different models and the different dimensions. Now it's quite complicated. It's still going to be a little bit of a difficult task.
I think to note, you know, not just the windshield, but a lot of the framework that goes around it as well. Right?
Absolutely,
so from a damage standpoint, yeah.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of different you know, windscreens on here. If you have glass, I mean, if I had a glass windscreen that broke, this is my first call. It's Tailormade, right? So glass, acrylic, glass, Tailormade. Acrylic, we can help potentially with acrylic. So let's kind of pivot, and we'll talk back about specifically acrylic windscreen. So what's kind of the next thing you want to look for if you have an acrylic windscreen.
Yeah, so I mean, really, is it damaged or is it missing, right? So some of the boats, somebody's taken it off and modified it. In my case, if I wasn't able to get this replaced, you see a lot of skiffs out there nowadays where they pop the windshield off and there is no windscreen on the boat whatsoever.
Which is always an option.
Always
right?
an option.
I mean,
right?
it's we're going to get down to the fact that it's pretty expensive to replace windscreens. In some cases, you might be better off just removing it.
Yeah. So in this case, I had the windscreen, and for a number of reasons, I really, over a year and a half haven't pulled the trigger getting it done because of, the barriers of cost and what it takes to actually build that windscreen. So I think we can go into that, and one of the options in the end is, sometimes it's so cost prohibitive to do a windscreen that another option may be ordering a new console, and as part of that, having that windscreen on there. But if you don't have a windscreen, really your option is you can't really go off of something. So having a custom fabricator come out to the house and bend it around the console that exists, or order a new console, you'll be able to get a windscreen for that console. But if we want to walk through,
sure, yeah,
kind of the process of getting this built.
So I would say for the person with an acrylic windscreen, my first advice is to try to find where the bending fixture is, the mold per se, right, is kind of equivalent in that case, right? So my first call would probably be to your boat builder
or
dealer,
right.
Yeah, dealer or boat builder, and ask, hey, where did you buy this windscreen? One, do you have it, and can you get it for me? If not, can you tell me what the OEM manufacturer was of this? Because I'm hoping to track down the mold to be able to rebuild it. And the big thing there is that, and let's actually show. I've got some pictures here. Let's switch back to just show a little bit about how these things are made. So I took some pictures down in our plant downstairs right before we went live here of some bending fixtures we had laying around. So the reason I say your best bet is to try to find who built it originally is they're going to have some of these fixtures, that of course match your windscreen.
And they're cataloged, right? So like in our catalog, we have fixtures that we've used. We keep them for X number of years depending upon volume that's out there, or at least nowadays have the files to recut that fixture to make it for the customer if we need to.
Absolutely, but you can see that these tools are quite big and expensive, and it's not even that they're so expensive because it's just plywood and then of course labor to build it, but very expensive to engineer, right? You got to engineer this to be able to bend the exact windscreen with the exact shape that you need. So you're way better off if you can find the person who built it originally and cross your fingers and hope that they still have that fixture.
Exactly.
Right. So then let's go. You're kind of going progressively. How screwed am I really?
Right.
To a certain degree. So let's pretend that maybe the boat builder was out of business, or let's pretend that the OEM manufacturer who built it was out of business, or then let's pretend that you find the OEM manufacturer and they don't have the fixture anymore. All of which are things that we hear all the time.
Sure.
Right. The next question is, do you have the windscreen?
Yep.
And if you do, what are your options then next? Your options would be to send that to us for quoting at that point.
And I think it really depends on the type of bend. I was fortunate enough that this has a kind of a 90-degree bend on the radius here. I don't want to show everybody all the lights here, but you can see that that's pretty simple. So in the case that if we were mass producing this, we would add a fixture to be able to consistently bend this over. We've got some really talented minds here that are able to, in my case, this was able to be bent over the edge of a table, right?
It was bent by hand.
By
so
hand.
Conveniently, and this is an example, I bet people are probably looking at going, what's the big deal? This is a simple windscreen. And this is a very simple windscreen. In many cases, this radius is not near as tight, right? So again, spinning it. This radius, and I went and spoke with our prototype manager who built this part before we started recording here. But in this case, the radius is exactly what just happens when you build a 90-degree bend, right? But in many cases, that radius is much larger. It's trying to match the console area or whatever.
You see glass. Some of like the Go Fast boats that have kind of the fully rounded radius.
Absolutely.
Or even the front of like a bass boat that has like the rounded windscreen that you couldn't just by hand make that perfect.
Well, it even gets more complex too once you start having bends, complex bends where there might be a bend in this direction, right?
Yep.
Coming up like that or flaring up at the top. In all of those cases, you cannot bend it by hand. It has to have a bending fixture like we showed on that previous screen that's designed specifically for that windshield.
Right.
So if you have the windshield, you can send it to us and we can quote you. that quoting process generally is quite expensive. You know, it's one of those things that it's tough to explain to somebody just everything that goes into reverse engineering off of your windscreen
to build
a fixture that we're going to use once to then bend your windscreen.
And then the fixture we, in most cases, won't use, right?
We almost definitely would throw it away.
You know, this boat's from 1985, so
right.
You know, what are the odds that somebody's going to ask for this windshield ever again?
Sure. And that's where it's challenging, because you start to quote somebody and their eyes pop out when you give them the number. And, you know, I've heard my boat's only worth half that much, you know,
right.
kind of jokes. So the next question is, well, what if a person doesn't have the original windscreen, right? And that person is really in a bad place, unfortunately. I mean, there's really no way around it. I would say that for that person, I would recommend trying to find a local plastics fabricator who could come out and can digitize your area and kind of build it almost by hand. You know, maybe using a flame torch or a heat gun, and, you know, kind of on site trying to you know, build something that fits your area. There's really, unfortunately, nothing, you know, given the fact that, you know, we are a manufacturer, we're not an installer. There's really nothing that we can do, unfortunately, and I hate having to say that. It's always those are the always
toughest calls.
Tough calls, yeah, to be able to say, hey, there's nothing you can do. But if someone's at that point, that's my recommendation.
Like we were talking to Mike, actually, who works in our sales department earlier, and he went to kind of an antique boat show. I guess we have one of the largest antique boat shows here in Central Florida, over in the Mountain Door area. He was talking to a guy that, you know, what do you do in the case that in most of these cases the windshield's damaged or gone? You know, they've salvaged this older boat and they're rebuilding it. And, you know, they're going to a local plastic shop, and on site they're bending it to fit that. So, you know, that may be an option as well, dependent upon the boat. Like I said, you know, possibly getting a new console that would drop in there that you know that there's a windscreen available directly from the supplier. You know, short of some custom fabrication, which again would be expensive. You know, you really start to weigh the cost. A new console costs, you know, $1,200, but I know this windscreen is going to cost me that with a fixture.
Sure. So why don't we look a little bit more at your specific windscreen? Why don't you show them kind of the before and after, and talk a little bit about why you chose that color here. Set that on the ground. Boom. So why'd you pick clear instead of a tinted? You can see that you went from a tinted to a clear. Yeah,
so, you know, a lot of the boats nowadays, kind of feedback I've got is that, you know, a lot of them aren't going with the tinted. So, you know, everything's been updated on the boat. You know, I was deciding between either a clear or a green edge. My boat's a little more of an off-white color, so I don't know that the green edge would look as good. Just feedback from some of the guys here.
So green edge, let's show green edge real quick. So let's go back to the Boat Outfitters page and we'll look at the acrylics. Right, so, and actually I have some sitting in front of me here too, I can show you. But the green edge is designed to look like glass, right? You know, so you got that kind of green tint that you really only see when you're looking at, you know, kind of at an angle at the edge. You don't really see it looking through it, versus you went with the pure clear.
Yeah, I think maybe even that's another option, right? If you don't fully do the windscreen, I've seen some guys that have rebuilt the boat that they just do, you know, just this initial front piece. So that's something that potentially, you know, they don't have that swept wraparound look around the entire console, but they're able to get something that keeps the splash off the top of their dash.
Absolutely.
So, you know, maybe show them some of our cut to size stuff that may be an option. You know, you click on the green edge acrylic, you don't want this full wrap around here to the dash, but you're able to order just this piece.
Yeah, you know, maybe you wanted, what do we say that is? Maybe a 28 by
23,
20, yeah, it's 20. Yeah, you can order just that piece for $100, right around $100. You know, you can get it polished if you want. So if you just wanted to do a flat panel as opposed to doing a full, you know, bent windscreen, that's certainly an option. You know, I have my sales manager here is actually on the other side of the camera. Have you ever done that before, where you've sold somebody a flat substitute to try to cut costs as far as doing a bent windscreen?
A couple of times, but not often.
He's saying a couple of times, but not often. I wonder if more people would take that up if they knew that as an option.
If you went with thicker acrylic, you could screw the ends together.
Sure.
So that you still have your sides. That saves you from having to bend it.
Yeah, but then you leave a gap. He's saying, you know, if you went with thicker acrylic, you make a hard right angle, you know, actually screw it together, which is totally an option. It would look a little bit hokey though. But I mean, if you're looking to save costs, that's definitely an option.
It's a little bit more applicable to somebody who has a handrail that follows the shape of the console or the shape of the windshield.
To where they could tie it off or something, you know, have holes at the top to be able to do some type of cabling to that actual handrail.
You know, one other thing to keep in mind is that we do have a few, I say a few, when I say a few I mean one, windscreen on the website. That's a high volume windscreen that we have kept the fixture and it's in production. Let me see if I can find that. I think that's under the Boston Whaler page. Is that right?
So, you know, story behind this windshield, we'll wait till it gets up here. There we go. So, you know, a lot of Boston Whalers out in the field. You know, we had a console in here from one of our customers that kind of was redoing everything, and you know, we saw this as an opportunity. We were redoing his windshield. At the same time, Matt actually had a customer bring in that was a 13 Whaler, and then at the same time, Matt had a 15 Whaler with a center console that got brought off. This was a 13 and a 15, and we actually took the windshield, went and lined it up to the other one, and noticed that it fit. So the same fixture we built for this, we saw that it fit the 15, and then, you know, all the hole patterns lined up. So we actually, as part of this, built a check fixture for our customers, cool, that they're able to, you know, hold that up. You can see where the tick marks are, all the different mounting holes. You know, so, you know, instead of ordering something that's not really returnable, right? We're building these to order. You pay $20 to buy this to make sure that it fits before you order a $300 windshield. And
this is a good example of to go ahead and take a second and toot our own horn a little bit. This is an example of where, you know, we really, when you work with boat outfitters, we make every effort to try to do everything right up front. You know, and be as transparent as possible. If you go back to the original windscreen here, you can say these windscreens are not returnable. Well, they're not returnable because we don't have anything to do with them when you return them. We build them to order. We're building them for you. You know, so you know it's you know, so you order it and you don't check if it fits. You know, that becomes a little bit of a challenge, and we have to work through that, and no one wants to deal with that. So we've built this check fixture, which, let's see, what does it sell for? It's $24, right? And we're trying to cover the material and the shipping, so that you can set this up against your console, make sure that the radius is fit, see exactly where your holes you know, are in your console to make sure this, you know, fits. You know, if you work with us on a windscreen, as much as we're in many ways trying to discourage that because it's quite expensive, you know, we're always going to go above and beyond to try to get you drawings, communicate expectations as far as lead time, keeping the loop on where we're at. You know, so it's very much so something we're open to. It's just something that becomes quite expensive, and we want somebody to be educated on other options before they feel like, hey, this is my only option, and they're quoting telling me it's going to be, you know, $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah, and some of the you know, Everglades, we do a lot of work with Everglades for their windshields and their side windshields, and we sell, you know, a fair number of those as well. You know,
that's actually an example of the kind of more of a straight flat windscreen too.
Right, exactly. So you'll see there's the front windshield there for an Everglades 243 and the side windshield. So, you know, in that case where they're marrying it up against the console itself, you know, that is something that we're supplying. We have a couple different options for years, makes, models. You know.
So what do we miss? What do we miss on windscreens? Matt, what do you get questions for that would be helpful to explain to the audience?
You know, you covered a lot of it. The complex bends are the biggest challenge. In some case, what you could talk about it is the different type of fixtures that are required to make different types of windshields.
So what he's saying is he's talking about the variety of you know, that it can vary quite considerably based off how complex the bend is, right? In this case, this is about as simple as it gets. You know, something like this might only be somewhere between $300 and $400. You know, don't hold me to that, but that's what I'm thinking, ballpark, you know, gut. But that's because we were able to avoid a fixture, right? If this had a complex bend or this had a larger radius,
fixture alone would
the fixture could be $500-600 before you even factor in the windscreen
for something that you're not going to get, right? We can send it to you, but
yeah, if you want
the
fixture, you can have it. So yeah, you know, and not only just that $500-600 I said, if it was a complex bend that had been going in this direction, it would probably be closer to, what do you think?
800.
I've seen some that are over 1,500.
Yeah, those are for probably more big. You know, one thing to mention is, you know, we're talking about windscreens, but just about everything that we're talking about, is very applicable to a big sliding cabin entry doors. So I think we have a question. What do we have there, Sarah?
It says, what does a bend look like?
A bend. You want to turn and kind of see if you can see there?
Yeah, so maybe I'll rotate the windshield around this way here. You can see inside this radius. Maybe if I flip it this way,
there we go.
You can see a little bit better of the bend, right? So this bend here, it's more at a 90-degree angle. It's pretty sharp here. You know, sometimes you'll have more of a radius where it's swept all the way around. You would actually need some type of like a fixture to be able to make that.
You could
Yeah, you know, I was actually pulling the radius template up. Let's pull it up and show you. Let's see here. 1 second. Switch back to my screen. So here's our radius template. Right, so here's your different bends, right? So I'd have to print this and kind of overlay Jared's...
probably 3/4 inch.
Yeah, it's
there.
about 3/4 inch. You know, but I mean, you get to where there's quite considerable, you know, large radiuses.
That extend even over a larger area, right?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. What you got, Matt?
I was going to say you can show a larger radius on that piece of acrylic right there.
Oh, that's a good example. Here, grab this. So getting this out of the way. So this is a display piece that we built for the sake of just showing product. But here you can see a much larger radius and then a different radius size here. So we have a fixture that we use to build this, and this is a thing that we donate to some different CCA and different conservation associations when we want to show our products or donate a product. So we keep that bending fixture available to build that specific part. It has no other use. It takes up space. It is made to build that part. So same story with a you know, windshield or a fixture for any other, you know, bent acrylic part.
Right. Is there any other questions out there, Sarah?
Let's switch back. Sorry, the wrong button.
So maybe we can show them even from you know, where we're doing a lot of our fixtures that we're building here are for like shower rotary doors or even you know, like slider doors. Do you want to show a couple of those and kind of the same concept, right? I think the picture you showed earlier of downstairs, that was for like a shower rotary door.
That one was actually more of a, well, there might have been that in the background. Let's see. You could absolutely be right. So let's go to that and see. Switch back.
I think we've got one more question. Sarah?
Yeah, Jeff was saying, can you make any shape bend? If not, what options do I have?
We can make any shape bend. Now, we are not a thermoforming company. That's not our specialty. So when you talk about, like, if you wanted to you know, bend a dome, or you wanted to bend a full think of like a vacuum formed bin, that's not really our specialty. But if you want any different radius, yeah, that is definitely something you could do
up to a certain point, right? I think as you get into some of the acute angles, you know, you can't go past a certain point, right?
Matt, what's your take on that?
My take is, generally speaking, we can bend it out of a flat piece of material as long as there isn't a vacuum required, and we can make a fixture to recreate it.
So he's saying, in case you can't hear, that in his experience, and you know, he's been here longer than really anyone on the customer service side, he's the customer service manager, that we've been able to create a fixture and bend just about anything that's ever been requested. Now, there's been plenty of times that fixture is cost prohibitive to your project, right? That's the one challenge, and that's where, you know, on the aftermarket side, for selling it to individual boat owners, you're at such a disadvantage, right? If I wanted to build this fixture and I'm going to sell it to Yellowfin or Hydrosport or Scout or Sea Munt,
makes sense because of the volume.
Yeah, it's you know, you're amortizing that over a bunch of different parts. It's much more challenging when someone says, "Hey, I'm going to build this and I need this for one windscreen." So in that way, it becomes a little bit cost prohibitive sometimes. Sure. Going back to your original question, this is what I think the bulk of that fixture was for, or the main product. In fact, you can see it right here. Here's a bending fixture right
cabin
here.
Entry door.
For like a sliding cabin entry door. Now, you are right. This is more of like a shower door, and we have some fixtures that are like full half domes for the big rotary shower doors that we sell as well. And you can see there's all kind of fixtures, and this is probably what, maybe 2% of all the fixtures that we have. We probably have 400 or 500 different fixtures, and unfortunately, we do have to throw some away from time to time just because
no room.
There's no room.
Been discontinued,
yeah, the boat's been discontinued. You know, we've never gotten a call for it. You know, so in fact, that this whole mezzanine area that you see coming up, and there's two mezzanines going, you know, apart from each other, are just completely full with that, as well as I think some containers, some like shipping containers we have that are full with bending fixtures. And you can see there's all different kinds. This actually looks right here like a windshield fixture to me. And then some different like armrest fixtures and stuff like that. So yeah, we can do all different kinds of bend shapes to answer your question. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah, make sure you like, comment, ask questions. We want to hear from you if there's anything we missed. Any questions about
Adding
windshields
content for next week. If you guys have any questions or that you want to see next week, add that below as well.
Please, absolutely.
Anything on our site as you guys go through, why do you do this way? Why is this complex, etc. We'll be able to address that here every week.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Talk to you later.
Thanks.